Welcome to episode 2 of the Free Range International Podcast. My name is Baba Tim, and I am your sole source for rational analysis of the debacle that has become our adventure in Afghanistan, and also your sole source for interesting stories and things that, quite frankly, you never knew and are going to have a hard time believing. Now, just recently, SIGAR, that's the Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, released, I believe it's his 39th quarterly report on the reconstruction effort, documenting the millions, nay, billions of dollars being squandered and wasted in a feckless attempt to try to create out of whole cloth an Afghanistan state. It includes some great pictures. And by the way, there's going to be a bunch of pictures in this episode. Like this. Look at this. This is a fan that was installed in the Ministry of Interior new headquarters building. The Ministry of the Interior is home to the NDS, the National Directorate of Security. That's the secret police. Now, if the secret police had contracted an Afghan construction company to come in and build a headquarters and install ceiling fans, and they found this, what do you think is going to happen to the contractor? I'll give you a hint. Lights out. Yeah. It's not going to happen. Only when Western largeness, unsupervised millions of dollars is dumped into a place are you going to find this kind of unbelievably crappy execution of task. And it wasn't always this way. It didn't have to be this way. And there was a time when, due to serendipity, due to happenstance, due to the initiative of a bunch of internationals, things weren't trending that way at all. And this is, again, early on in our Afghan conflict, and it's a story I want to cover. Now, in July of 2013, the Pacific Examiner published a long-form article on the Synergy Strike Force, in which it detailed a U.S. government program that the reporter was too late and he missed it. It detailed a U.S. government program funded by DARPA, the experimental guys, that it's hard to believe. It starts out talking about my good friend Dr. Dave Warner. It leaves out my good friend Bobby Ken, who was as instrumental in this adventure as anybody else, but that's the way these things go. Let me read to you the very first paragraph. It was a dark time and a long drawn-out war. Afghanistan was festering with resentment. The Pentagon brass were desperate. It was a last-ditch moment when authorities started throwing an era's weirdest ideas at its most hopeless bureaucratic mistakes. All of it true, except for the reporter got there about 4 years too late. He missed it. Because what DARPA was trying to do and what the Pentagon wanted to accomplish was to find some way to interact with the NGOs on the ground and incorporate their information that they had into the military intelligence cycle in order to increase the situational awareness of our forces, which were locked down on FOBs. That's essentially what it endeavored to do. And it did that. It did that, but it wasn't ever planned that. This just happened, okay? And when this just happened, a bunch of circumstances came together that for a brief, shining couple of years was a way forward, what pretended a bright future. But ultimately it failed. And it failed for the same reason that our efforts in Afghanistan are going to fail. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why that is with pictures. But first, let me start at the beginning. And the beginning was November of 2007. Your host, Baba Tim, then known as Tim Son, because I was in the security business at the time, working for the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA, the USAID equivalent. And I had 3 Japanese experts, rice experts, on a rice implementation project, the RIP. It doesn't translate that way in Japanese. Down in Nangarhar province, outside the city of Jalalabad, living in the Taj guest house, the famous Taj guest house. And it was a good project. We had just gotten started. Jalalabad was kind of chill at the time, but I was in a panic because I had inherited this guest house from a UN outfit that had recently got the heave-ho, and I can't remember why. They had suffered a series of tragedies. The biggest tragedy was that New Zealand got beat by France in the Rugby World Cup in October of that year. And there was a French NGO watching this live with the Kiwis. I mean, this is like 3 o'clock in the morning, Afghan time. And oh my God, those guys were suicidal. I thought they're going to take away the live ammunition from them. You've never seen people so upset. I don't watch professional sports. I don't get it. And I'm surrounded by Dallas Cowboy fanatics. I don't understand what the hell they get all worked up about. But within countries, I can see it. And then the guys lost their contract and had to go home, which seemed to be less of a devastating event for them, quite frankly. But the night I came back in November, to the first time when there wasn't any Kiwis there and I was on my own to try to float this thing, it was a hell of a monthly nut. Just getting the diesel to run the generator was a hell of a monthly nut. And guess what? Once we lost the UN generator, we didn't run the generator. We didn't have a generator to run. Diesel became easy at that point. But as I got back, I parked my car, my SUV actually, high speed, low drag. It was a local SUV. It ran like crap, right? And I'm getting my weapons out. I'm going to go up to my room and I hear this. This is what I hear as I'm getting out of my car. That's it, man. Crew Salad. Soma FM. DJ Rusty Hodges out of San Francisco. Fan supported. Ought to give this boy some money. He's got some great stations. I like Left Coast 70s the best because I'm an old bastard. And I'm listening to this music. I didn't even know we had speakers in the bar. It was my first night there by myself with my Japanese Chargers, of course. And I kind of wander over, and here's these two long-haired dudes sitting there at the bar, got a bottle of what the hell that rum? Captain Morgan rum and Cokes. And they're like, hey, can you find some ice for us? And I'm like, who are you guys? Anyway, they start telling me about this program. They're the Synergy Strike Force. And they've got this program. They're going to bring in a big fat pipe internet. They're going to bring in a fab lab, a fabrication laboratory from MIT. They're going to kick internet and wire up the city. And they're affiliated with the most effective NGO to ever operate in Nangarhar province. And you're not going to believe who this is. Are you ready for this? The La Jolla Rotary Club. That's right. Jalabad is a sister city with San Diego, La Jolla being a little municipality outside of San Diego. La Jolla Rotary Club had a couple of dedicated volunteers on their own dime coming over and would ultimately build a girls' dormitory at the Nangarhar University, schools everywhere. They got involved and they would bring in Rotarians from other parts of the country. A matter of fact, here's one of my favorites, Mrs. Kay Danes, who came in and she was doing women's empowerment stuff, and all these people were on their own dime. Kay Danes was like a professional engineer. She'd been detained, I believe, in Indonesia and thrown in jail. Fearless woman, with her husband. And her husband was like the sergeant major for the Australian SAS squadron. So yeah, he kind of got the fearless thing sort of pegged out there, right? But and I use Kay's picture here as a stand-in because the La Jolla La Jolla Rotary Club members, they're still active in Afghanistan. They're still going over there. I don't want to highlight them or skyline them anymore. But here's Ken and Dave, and they're sitting there, and I'm like, you guys, are you guys spooks? But I knew better because intelligence people. Ignore the movies and all the crap that you see in books. They don't go outside the wire. I mean, yeah. In 2001, they had a bunch of guys, a lot of them with the ground, that GRU, the ground guys, which were contractors. I happen to personally know a few of them. One of them got very badly injured in a motorcycle accident, unfortunately. But they had come in and run amok in 2001 and did a hell of a job. But once they started being successful, well, then all the bureaucrats from D.C. start parachuting in the ballroom and taking things over. And ultimately, because of them, we don't get bin Laden. The whole point of the exercise should have been over in 2001. Should have never let that guy go. A young brigadier general named James Mattis was down in Kandahar begging to throw his Marines in behind him to seal up the border so he can't get away from Pakistan. But no, by that time, all your big army and your big CIA and all the Mandarins are in, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want that. Oh, we don't want another Mogadishu. Oh, we can't let the Special Forces guys get too close to him. We'll go ahead and pay Hazrat Ali's friggin' brigands to go up and do the fighting for us. And even though a few of the Delta guys did get close, because Delta guys are ballsy. Like I said, they're the only SF guys that I think are worth a cup of warm spit, quite frankly. And I'm including my Marine Corps brothers, too. But even despite those guys getting close, it doesn't matter. Bin Laden got away. And thus begins our travails in Afghanistan. So, old Bobby Ken and Dave, they're not spooks, but it turns out, as you read this article, published again in 2013, that they had DARPA funding. And sure enough, the first thing that shows up is a gator ball. At the time, the gator ball was an experimental technology. Now, since they've developed it, refined it, issued an IPO, made $1 quadrillion, but their first test case was us. And the DARPA money was to fund the satellite link that this gator ball, uplinked to. And they figured they might get 6 months out of it. It's expeditionary, not supposed to be a permanent fixture, right? Oh no. Got 2 years out of it. Matter of fact, we got a bigger gator ball. They're like, hey, why don't you try this one out? As you can see, a big signature. See that son of a bitch from the road. Not the brightest move. That thing ended up getting bullet holes in it and stuff. People just shoot at it for the hell of it, right? But you just put a little tape on there and it's got a compress. I mean, it kept going. The transponder got torn off the thing by a windstorm. The Bobby Ken's Jalalabad Geek Squad comes over with glue and whatnot. We reattached that thing, get it all tuned in and aimed on it. It was the fastest internet I've ever used. It's European internet fast because, you know, us Americans, we think we got fast internet. Pfft, we got crap internet. You go over to Europe and use that internet. That's some internet, right? So the very first things that happens is this gator ball shows up, right? And then I start getting emails from MIT, from a PhD candidate by the name of Amy Sun. Says, I'm coming over, I'm shipping this stuff, how am I going to get it in the country? Now, what I brought to the party to begin with was the ability, and this was an ability I developed over the years. I was like a rum runner, right? I knew how to get booze and how to take it to people and sell it at a profit because I was starting my own company. It wasn't going very well. We had gone bust. We had imported 80 friggin' bomb and drug dogs, thinking, how can you go wrong with bomb and drug dogs in a narco state that's undergoing an insurgency? I tell you how you go wrong. Because nobody wants to see drug dogs that are actually finding drugs. My daughter found a bunch of them in Kabul airport. We immediately got fired off the contract. That wasn't what she was supposed to find. She's off wandering around. Yeah, oh yeah, my kids were all there. So I'm keeping the bar going because on Thursday nights at the Taj, by tradition, started by the Aussie and Kiwi guys ahead of me, all the NGOs would show up there and the crap you could find out. And this is like, a lot of them are female. You got French NGOs. You've got German NGOs. As a matter of fact, here's a picture of the French NGOs blatantly violating the no Speedo rule at the Taj pool because we had a nice in-ground pool too. Thank you, Kiwi dudes. You guys were awesome, right? Brits, Australia, I mean, everything. There'd be special forces teams would come in for that thing. Road crews from Blackwater would show up. Not often, Eric. Honest to God, not often. But I mean, there could be on a big night, 60, 70 people there. About 40% of them females. There are all kinds of stuff going on at the Taj. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Although I would submit to you, and I dare somebody to tell me I'm wrong that's listening to this. I think despite what you read in like if you've watched that stupid Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which has every trope there ever was, the women blowing up the wells, yeah, right. You know, Afghans, we pay attention to time. We've got watches, and I forget, that's an old one that no Afghan has ever said. What the hell was that thing? They've got time, we've got watches, or then no Afghan's ever said that. I've never seen an Afghan without a watch. I haven't. That's stupid. Now, they don't show up on time to anything. That's what the inshallah thing's about, which can be used to your advantage if you know what the hell inshallah, if you know the attitude. But that's neither here nor there, right? So we got the bar going, and thank God that this and this is all. I mean, I've got no idea how we're going to get a generator big enough. I mean, the Taj is 3 gigantic guest house, 2 in the front, 1 in the rear, nice vegetable garden in the back. That the Japanese would grow vegetable, Japanese guys, because they're all agricultural dudes. They had a nice vegetable garden. My driver and faithful companion for 8 years, Haji-san, grew dope back there. Good stuff, too. I mean, Haji knew how to make hash without washing all the trichomes off, because most of the time Afghan hash is shit. You can get a tali, a lamb's tongue. It's the size of your hand, $10. $10, but it's crap. It's why bother? But at any rate, so we're keeping the thing going in May, and I'm talking back and forth to this PhD student who just sends long, detailed emails. I'm getting taskers from him, and I'm like, God damn. But one of the things that happened was because of her and her coordinator there, Mrs. Sherry Lassiter, a nice lady. I met them all eventually. We got a big ass generator. Sure as shit. Here comes the generator, I'm like, okay, I'll go up and I'll make the deal and they'll sign it. And this thing happened, boom, boom, boom. Nothing happens boom, boom, boom in Afghanistan, but this did. Money got wired in from Cambridge. Out came the guys, installed the generator. Next thing you know, now I got to worry about diesel. And it just so happened at that time, I'm every day I would go over to the base at the airfield and work out and then eat lunch. Not because I necessarily wanted to. I was kind of like thinking I was an old guy. I can now be lazy and be a turd and stuff. But no. Because also as part of this hookup, this social hookup in Jalalabad, you had ANSO. That's the Afghan NGO Security Office. And these offices in all the major cities were run by expats and had Afghan management and whatnot. And they basically kept track of security incidents and gave security advice to NGO, because the UN itself, they had a whole different system, and their stuff was for UN, and this is what they did for the NGOs, and these guys didn't get paid much. But normally if you had an ANSO guy, if you've got a bar and you got an ANSO office that's just 5 miles away, you can figure there's $300 a month easy just from the ANSO guy. Those guys are notorious for smoking dope and drinking all day, right? Not my guy. No, hell no. I get a Canadian named John Bintz. One of the smartest guys when it comes to military things, history and whatnot, that I've ever met. Now, he former Canadian officer, was there in 2001 with the Canadian contingent, landed in Bagram, called back to the Canadians, said, hey, I think I need a rifle if things aren't this done. They land at C-130 and kick a rifle out the back and then take back off. I mean, John's got to go one around and find the damn thing, right? Former cop, great guy. I'm just an interesting guy, but he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't do anything like that, just drinks water. And here's a picture of him. Again, this is a typical summer night in Jalalabad. It's about, 110 or so. I'm sweating like a pig. And I lean up, because he didn't like it when people touched him. John's a very finicky guy. But he insisted that I take him over to the base every day so he can use the gym. And he got me back into working out, bless his heart. And we'd go, and I discovered the beauty of the DFAC. Actually, I knew about it because I'd been hitting DFACs up in Kabul for years. And the Jalalabad DFAC was particularly nice. Always had pecan pie and mint chocolate chip ice cream. Crap I can't eat now. But at the time, I was very appreciative. Actually, the best DFAC was across the road where the embedded training team was, because they had some kind of dude out of some Mexican American guy out of Houston, I think. And that guy had guacamole hamburgers every day. Oh my God, that was a great place to go walk into. And we could walk into these places. I had an old cat card from my embassy job. It was expired, but nobody looked. Ben's had some kind of weird UN stuff. But basically in 2007, 2008, if you show up outside a base and flash some kind of damn ID, the Afghans are on the gate. They're going to let you in. And then you go to a second gate where there's army folk. And They were the same army folk. They were there every day. These weren't the brightest folks. I mean, I ultimately got a cat card that identified me as DB Cooper. They never bought it, and I never got it. They were very friendly. Always sat there and joked with them. Had a great time, and then we'd go on to the base, right? So while there, the human terrain team, which was a new thing that had stood up, the human terrain team leader has figured out that we're not from the base, and we come on and off all the time and try to keep a low profile and stuff our pockets full of all kinds of food. Because you could actually, this wasn't like a Marine Corps defect. I mean, this is like you could just take anything out of the damn thing you wanted to. So we get those big muffins and stuff and bring them back for the Afghans and for our Japanese clients to eat, because they didn't have any idea to get them on the base. And so one day they came up and they said, okay, what's up? And basically I explained to him what I'm doing. I explained to him about Thursday nights at the Taj. I tell him that you, my friend, the human train team guy who's supposed to be getting intel, you guys, you should be out there. And he goes, well, how can we do that? I said, I'll come get you. But, it costs, it's $100 a night to stay at the Taj, right? He goes, well, we're not paying $100 a night. Don't worry about it. How about you give us some diesel? Oh, I don't know. Let me go talk to the brigade commander. So he works out a drug deal with the brigade commander. I'd already been pinching diesel a little bit because the diesel pit's run by KBR. Same crew in there. It seemed like every 6 months, the same crew with very little variation came back. And these were all African American folk out of Houston. And there were a couple of them. I remember, I think one of his name was James. I mean, for years I'd see him for 6 months at a time. He'd be putting his kid through college. Good, great guy. But they always thought that we were some kind of high-speed, outside-the-wire commando outfit. Because normally when I'd roll in with Benz or my buddy Shem and myself. You know, we just drive ourselves down. Get through the gate, get through the Army guys, and we'd pull into the fuel pit thing because you pull off the main road, and we'd shuck the Afghan clothes and get on our t-shirts and our ball caps and sunglasses and stuff. And I did that on purpose because I wanted them to see that's what we were about. Then I would try to come by and see if they'd fill up the vehicle, and they would. Thank God. You could do that anywhere, except for where the Brits were. But I'll get more into the Brits here in a second. The damn Brits ruined everything. You know, when Supreme took over Kandahar, no more getting fuel out of Kandahar. We'd stop by, they'd have these giant piles of water on pallets all over the base, just everywhere, right? I mean, everywhere. They were just case and cases of drinking water. And we'd load up on that crap, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's all degrading in the UV and going crappy anyway. So we'd always jam some cases of drinking water in the back of the car. And then on our way back, we'd hit checkpoints. We'd give it out to the Afghan cops and stuff. They love this, right? Because that's what you do when you're smart. And but I remember being on Alaska Guard at the PRT, and I see some big Army kid. I don't know what he was. He wasn't a grunt, obviously, because he's way too overweight. Wandering around, it's about, I don't know, 120, 130, right? And he's in all his and he's looking, where's the water supply point? I'm like, dude, this is a Brit base. There's no water supply point. Well, I gotta get some water. We'll go into their exchange there and buy it. It's $1 a bottle, man. And don't try to go into the DFAC or in the British DFAC, try to take food out of that. The Brits don't play that game. They don't fly in bottled water. They don't fly in 5-pound bags of ice. They made their own ice. They got their own water distillation thing in what the hell was it where Leatherneck was, and then it was Bastion in Camp Bastion. Tasted like shit too. I'm telling you. Ugh. But that's the Brits for you. They're a lot more common sense about this stuff, quite frankly, than we are. And so my British friends, I don't want any of them to get thinking I'm taking the piss out of you, because I got plenty to take the piss out of you about, but I'm not going to talk about it here. So at any rate, now the human terrain team's coming out and they're intermixing, and here's some pictures. They're in these pictures here. I'm not going to point them out. Secret squirrel guys. They're the contractors making $1,000 a day, by the way. Not us. Not anybody outside the wire. Not anybody on these security contracts. But that's neither here nor there. And they're getting information. And do I know that through the staying at the Taj and interacting with all the NGO people and interacting with us, that they in fact got information that directly impact their operations, directly contributed to saving of American lives? Yeah, I do know that. I know that for a fact. I keep in contact with a couple of them to this very day. And they told me after all was said and done, couldn't tell me because I didn't ask. I had no idea what was going on with them, what they found, what they didn't find, and whatnot at the time, because I had no clearance. You know, my clearance was gone once I left the embassy. And so they shouldn't have told me. So now comes the Fab Lab. Of course, me being able to operate inside Afghanistan, I tell them to ship it into Bagram. I go on to Bagram with a truck, pick that stuff up, come out of the Bagram in the truck. Haji jumps in the truck to drive the damn thing because it was the Red Hot Sizzler Steakhouse meat truck. We taking that. I don't want to talk about that. So that's what I went down to Red Hot Sizzler Steakhouse and Aussie guy running the thing. Hey man, I need to borrow your truck and haul something down to Jalalabad. I'll give you $100. All right, man. Here you go. Give me $100. So now Haji, but it's a little damn thing. Haji drives that thing down, overweighted from. I didn't realize how heavy this crap was, and we get it down into our place, unload that stuff. We've got no forklift. Oh, hell no. This is all manpower. This is all me, Haji Shem, just manhandling this crap off the truck. And then a few days later, in flies Amy's son and another volunteer with the Synergy Strike Force, Kelly Pettijohn. They show up and they start setting this thing up. And then by June, we've got in the back guest house a no shit fabrication laboratory set up, and business is booming. Amy just goes wandering on down to the local schools, and the next day, we've got a women's class, chaperoned, of course, by teachers and mothers. We've got a boys' class, chaperoned, of course, by teachers and mothers. We've got women from the Nangarhar University that were introduced to us through the La Jolla Rotary Club connection, teaching teenage boys how to access this stuff. And I mean, these kids are on it's like they had some kind of program that was sort of like Skype. It was a different program. And these kids are talking to kids in South Africa, talking to kids up in Norway. I remember them asking these kids in Norway, because they're up in the northern part of Norway. They said, yeah, the sun doesn't set here in the summertime. They're like, well, when do you break the fast during Ramadan? Well, who the hell knows in Norway? But they would look up on the internet and find out the answers to these things. They contacted some Muslim cleric in Sweden who talked to them and explained to them how the hell you went about doing this kind of stuff. Kind of fascinating, right? Now, let me real quick go back to the Singar report from that just was released last week, where it talks about another one of these programs that you just have to shake your head and wonder about. And in this program, what they're talking about is the inability of the Afghans to use the AHRIMS, whatever, medical computerized system to track the lab results. As a consequence of which 40% of the Afghans that are serving right now, they don't know their blood types. And the fact that they need to know the blood types for the trauma management is crucial, because one of the things that we learned in Afghanistan and towards the end of Afghanistan implemented was the importance of getting whole blood into trauma victims. Because back when I was a paramedic, back in the 80s and 90s, you would use packed red blood cells, because you didn't want to use whole blood because it had antigens on the whole blood, and you would tend to develop antibodies, and people thought that was bad. But the military figured out that if we could screen O positive and O negative donors, screen them for low numbers of antigens in their plasma, that this is the preferable method to do it. And they draw it all, I believe, in Fort Lewis, Washington. That's the whole, and they were constantly sending this in to the point where special forces medics and even regular medics had no chilled whole blood right in the field to give the people when they're hurt. So obviously the Afghans want to be able to do this, but they can't track the blood types because, and this is a quote, trauma care presents logistical challenges due to the issues with ANA literacy and technical skills related to using computer systems, internet access, and institutional knowledge. Internet access using a computer. 10 years before this, we had 6-year-old boys on the internet talking to 6-year-old boys in friggin' South Africa or Norway and figuring out how to make their own circuits and their own little battle bots and have little battle bot competitions 10 years prior to this, right? And as in 2008, the Fab Lab, it's just unbelievable how many people are showing up. Now, phase 2 starts with the Synergy Strike Force leveraging off their Fab Lab. They're going to kick out the internet into Jalalabad. They want to wire up the Nangarhar University. They want to wire up the teaching hospital. They want to put as many hot spots in Jalalabad as they can, because what they're thinking, the thought process is, give them the technology. Let them try to experiment with the technology. Don't force feed them crap. Modernity is going to have to be sorted out within the local community, right? And I mean, there's disappointments. Now, bear in mind, this is Fort Washington facility funding this damn thing, right? So in the basement is a proxy server. And that proxy server gets downloaded like on a regular basis. So everything that's going on the internet is being seen by the guys who are paying the bill for the internet. Collecting. What do they collect out of it? Who the hell knows? I talked to a spooky spook guy, and he said, knowing them and knowing the kind of stuff that they were wanting to do, they were probably looking more for consistency and download speeds and things like that. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know. Okay. So the Fab Lab, they go, okay, well, here's the thing. You see, we're not doing this for you. See, the Amy's son and her Fab folk, and Fab folk showed up from all over the world, from South Africa, from Iceland, from the UK, from America. They were all over the place. I mean, here's a picture of them programming. This is the only donation they ever got. was these for free little computers that could hook up to the internet and be distributed to schools so they could at least get some type of laptop experience, right? And here they are programming these things at the Taj Bar. Fab folk paid their bar bill. Not all my friends paid their bar bill. Very appreciative of them, right? So they're like, okay, we're going to spread the internet, but they've got to do it. We'll give them routers. They can't get routers. We understand that. But they've got to come up with reflectors. They've got to come up with the housings. They got to figure out how to do this. And here's the prototype. And here's a picture of it right here. There it is. Balsa wood, chicken wire, and here's the reflectors. USAID 5-gallon oil cans, straightened out, and they were the perfect pliability and whatnot. Now, below in this post is all things considered interview with Amy's son, and where she talks about this. And you should listen to it. It's interesting as hell, right? But so we boost out the internet. We light up the Jalalabad Teaching Hospital. So what do they start doing? Amy and the girls go running down to the proxy server. They kind of log in. They see what's going on. Porn. Holy smokes. But they got over that. You know, that dang our university, what's going on there? Jihad. Yeah, there's a little bit of a radical out there at the Nangarhar U. You know, that caused some problems. But at any rate, eventually they started using the internet for things other than you would admonish them for using. And as you start lighting up different parts of Jalalabad, there's all kinds of people getting access to the internet. Now, Dave at this point is also working at providing information. That's his thing. Information is freedom, right? And he's getting access to geospatial satellite data. And here's an example. Here's the Kunar-Nangarhar River where the Kunar flows in. The Kunar flows into the Kabul River. This is right outside of Jalalabad. Here's a picture of it 2002. Okay, now take a good look. Now, here's a picture of it in 2009. Note the amount of erosion and lost farmland. Why was that? Because some idiot NGO said, hey, I know what we'll do. We'll build retaining walls that kind of narrow up the river, and that way you won't have the river encroaching and taking farmland. Well, downstream of the retaining walls, the velocity of the river is eating up farmland, you know? And so we could use this to show the governor, to show the mayor and whatnot, look, these aren't good ideas. Dave did that with the UN guys to convince the elders of Kogyani to move one of their burial grounds out of the way so they could get a road through. Once he gave them the satellite data and showed them where the road was going to do, they're like, oh yeah, we'll do that. And they so that the Kiwis could finish up the road there. So Dave is doing all this kind of stuff, right? So we've got the ANSO guy, and what good was these connections with the ANSO guy? Here you go. John Binns comes screaming over to the Taj. John's not an idiot. He didn't mind me coming and picking him up, but he normally didn't drive by him. Well, he didn't drive by himself ever. He had his Afghan office manager, Krisho, drive him over, who was a good dude, right? So, and they pull up in a frenzy one morning, and I'm like, what's going on? Need some help here, okay? So, a Peshawar Kai NGO worker had been kidnapped up in the hills. I forget with Durbala, I think, but one of the districts, right? That's bordering Kunar, and he had been boosted by the Taliban right outside of a village where he was going to work. The villagers had armed themselves and were pursuing the Taliban, who were frantically trying to get up and over the mountains into Kunar where they could get some safe harbor with a different tribe, right? But the NGO guy they got, the Peshawar Kai, is a Japanese NGO. And these guys go into Pakistan and they just stay there. These guys are true believers. They speak Pashto. They don't interact with the Japanese government. They work off of donations, but mostly they work off of just being the kind of guys who know how to do things. And this guy was a water engineer, but uncharacteristically for somebody who lived in the Pashtun belt, he was overweight and smoked a lot, you know. So he's not making up the side of this mountain at any kind of a fast pace, because he's a pack-a-day smoker and he's fat as a tick. And so Binns is talking to the TOC. Now because it's the Army in Jalalabad now. No more Marine Corps, there's no more COC. It's a TOC, you know. Go figure. So he's talking to the TOC, and they've got a predator, and they're watching this on live. And he's telling them, no, don't shoot those armed guys that are behind them. Those are the villagers. They're going up to try to rescue the guy, right? So Kisro's talking to the guy on the scene who's huffing it up the mountain. John's talking to the people controlling the predator. They're asking me I call up JICA headquarters, and I'm now talking to the Japanese embassy, and I'm giving them kind of a blow-by-blow. Let them know they've got a host national who's in the process of kidnap, and he might be getting rescued. And then, the Taliban guys see that this poor Japanese fella, he ain't gonna make it up the damn mountain. So they turn around, they shoot him in the legs, thinking that they wound him. The villagers will get off their case and carry his ass back down the mountain. But they're stupid. They shoot him in the femoral artery, and the guy bleeds out. So the villagers get there, he's bleeding out. They're like, fuck, he's bleeding out. And they take off after the Taliban. and they catch him, and they shoot him. And I think they threw a few of them over a cliff or something. The villagers were pissed, because when you're working with the Afghans doing good things for them, they feel responsible for you. Now, we've got the body of a Japanese national up the side of a mountain. And John's talking to Talk, saying, hey, get us some green line. We'll go out and get them. Because they're not going to go. We asked them, can you send some special forces guys to go get the body? They're like, yeah, no, not going to happen. So, but we'll do it because, we've got Amy's son, who's this outdoors woman from hell. And I'm asking Amy, can you make him an A-frame and and we can belay this guy's body down? She goes, yeah, I know exactly how to do that. And so, she's going on the internet doing the Amy son thing, trying to get all her data. We're trying to get some green line from the SF guys. The Afghan National Police have now made it up there and examined the thing. He grabbed the poor Japanese guy, throw his ass off the damn side of the cliff because they're not going to carry him down. And then they go down and get the body. All these bodies end up, by the way, in the governor's compound. He does a press briefing with the press, and they're like little wooden coffins, like the Wild West days. And he's pointing at what they did to this guy, and he's pointing at the Taliban guys, and he's telling them what a bunch of scumbags. Oh, it was the most bizarre damn thing you've ever seen. But that's the kind of synergy that this is just like a normal day, right? So, and then on top of this, you've got the skipper. And the skipper is Ralph Ward, the only outside the wire EOD guy left in the country. How the hell he still got overlooked and wasn't forced on base? To this day, I don't know. But he had his own little guest house down next to the teaching university, had internet, thanks to us, nice fast internet. And Ralph would go anywhere in N2KL, N2, Nangarhar, Nuristan, K being Kunar, L being Logman. That four, matter of fact, here, let me throw up a map. There you go. That's N2KL, right? Anywhere, anytime. People call in and we're going to, and he'll go get the boom. And here's a typical day with Ralph Ward. So we're running around with Ralph. Now, I'm driving my own car because Ralph's got weird habits. He's the EOD guy. Only drinks 2 beers at a sitting. No, never more than 2 beers. Drives slow as hell. Afghans don't drive slow. Baba Tim does not drive slow. Read Michael Yon's post about hanging around with him. He thinks I'm a lunatic. I don't think he's right. But be that as it may, so we're riding around, right? And he stops his car, opens up his door because he's got to be in an armored vehicle because he's on one of these stupid government contracts. And he opens up the door and I stop. I'm smelling. It smells like somebody's cutting hay or something. I'm like, whoa, what's that? He goes, ID. Something's just blown up around here. So we start poking down the road and we're looking for striptease and whatnot. I mean, some A&A soldiers are out there and they're standing in the road. And we pull up and Ralph's got a whole crew with him of Afghans that he's training so that when he leaves, these Afghans become experts at training IED guys. Oh, where are these Afghans today? They're all living in Northern Virginia, delivering in Domino's, of course. Not a one of them stayed, but that's typical, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So he gets out, and the A&A guys are like, yep, guys, right down there, some villagers and whatnot, and apparently some cat had set a bomb up on the road that we're standing on in this big old drainage pipe, and then it gone down, and whatever the hell who knows what he did, but he blew himself up. Now he's gone, right? And so Ralph goes, in the culvert. So he gets out his little search mirror, his fisheye mirror, in a good light, hangs it over the thing, puts the light on the mirror, and we look into the pipe, and sure as shit, there's a car jack, and on top of it's a pressure cooker. It's got a blasting cap and wire coming out of it, and it's right up against the top of the road. I probably wouldn't have done much. I mean, it wasn't that big a pressure cooker, right? But he goes, yeah, we got this. This is going to be great. So we pull back. Ralph gets out 2 lawn chairs, puts down his tailgate, gets out a piece of cardboard, starts slopping grease on that thing and busts out of his locker, starts busting out blocks of C4 and putting it on there, right? His Afghans get a 5-gallon water jug, give it to some kids because now we got traffic stop. So all these people are out looking at what's going on. tells them to go down in the creek bed and fill it up. And they fill that thing up to the top of water, come lugging it up. Little skinny bastards are strong, right? Afghans tie some 550 cord to it. Ralph gives them the cardboard with the C4. They slap it on the side of this thing and tape it all in place. And one of them gets down and they kind of situate this thing with the Afghan guys, They primed it, so now they've run out some shock tube to a clicker. They get it so it's just right where they want it to be, tie it off, go back out the road. The Afghan EOD guys being cool, get the A&A guy, hey, go ahead and give this shot. Give us the fire in the hole. They scream in English 3 times. Fire in the hole, fire in the hole, fire in the hole. Whammo, right? So C4 being a slow burning explosive, I think about 2,300 feet per second, right? What it does is it doesn't evaporate the water. It pushes all this water, all 5 gallons, down this little constricted pipe where it inerts the IED and destroys it, and then it shoots out the other end, and it's like water cannon effect, right up into the trees, and it's like this gigantic blast of water, and it leaves like it starts to dissipate, and rainbow colors come, and there's a bunch of little kids, and they're dancing around, screaming, and everybody's happy. The locals are taking pictures with the A&A guys and the IED guys, and me and Ralph are sitting there drinking Cokes, which I normally would never do because I don't like soda. We're on these lawn chairs, and Ralph looks at me and goes, "Can you believe we get paid for this shit?" And no, I can't, as a matter of fact. So here you've got the Taj. You've got all these things going on, and then I turn into the heavily armed humanitarian. My boy Shem takes over the Japanese security thing, and now I'm on a program where I'm going to bring development into Afghanistan. It was called FIRA, the Food Insecurity Relief for Urban Populations, designed to get urban populations through the tough Afghan winter, which in Jalalabad isn't that tough, right? And so, but it didn't start till April, so it kind of missed the winter, but that's the USAID for you. It's not an important program. It's just a few $100,000. I've got to do a program in Jalalabad, which is pretty chill at the time, a program in Gardez, which wasn't chill at all, right? And the idea is to get these massive programs where we're going to go in. This is what I decided I was going to do. I'm going to clean up every irrigation ditch. I'm going to bring in all the water coming into the city. We're going to unscrew those things, all the crezzes. We're going to go down there and hire crez diggers and dig those things out. But what I wanted to do was, and then we're going to establish a dump and haul this crap out because I want to reduce the vector load and the mosquitoes in particular, because Jalalabad's got some bad damn malaria. I got a taste of it. Let me tell you, it was kind of nasty. And that's what I'm going to do. And at the same time, I'm going to do a women's empowerment. I'm going to do a women's health program where we're going to send women around to all the pregnant women, talking about their prenatal health, give them vitamins, give them chow, give them assistance, and what have you, which dovetails into what the Synergy Strike Force is doing, because they've got folks that are medical folks that are through Baba Ken's Reach Back program. They're trying to use SMS text and messages to reach out into the rural areas so that midwives, if they have problems, could have a resource to talk to. That's part of what they're up to, right? With some of their follow-on people. And as you can see, so I was going to employ 5,000 guys for 2 months at a time for 3 iterations for 6 months running. $6 a day, 6 day a week work week, 1 pay period a month. Biggest problem I had was dealing with the pay. But what it was designed to do was not only reduce the vectors, but at the same time inject a shit ton of spending money onto the local economy in hopes of organically growing the local economy, because the Pashtun people are natural entrepreneurs. I mean, there's not a crappy dive truck stop in Texas that isn't run by Pakistanis or people from India, mostly Pashtuns, because they'll come in at the bottom and work their way up. Just like my last story about the interpreter that came back to Kunar from New York City, worked his way up. They're very, very good at this kind of stuff. So we're going to inject money in and hopefully get some thriving businesses going. That's what we're designed to do. Now, last January, and I'm now going to do a little compare and contrast, because this really, really fucking irritates me, right? Last January, the guest house that housed Save the Children in Jalalabad was bombed and then attacked by ISIS, or the Daesh, right? A few of the members were killed. And I remember thinking at the time, Save the Children, Jalalabad, never heard of them. You know, I mean, I've been working with Jalalabad schools, Jalalabad Women's Hospital. I've been working with the Nangarhar women's resources. In Afghanistan, the central government has line ministries that reach down into the provinces and down into the district level. RRD, Rural Rehabilitation Department, that's one of them. These things are separate entities. They're not so much under the control of the provincial governor, which is part of the problem, or the local authorities, right? They have a women's empowerment ministry, but whatever. But I was working through them with my women programs. And like I said, I've been pasting in pictures of this stuff all the way along. Here's a picture of that. But I'd never heard of Save the Children, right? So I started looking at Save the Children website. What the hell are they doing in Afghanistan? Been there since the 1970s. Saving children. All worried about, first off, they talk about introducing family planning. Yeah, my ass. No, you don't even, no, yeah, that's not even, that's so stupid so they're not doing that. I don't care what they think they're doing. But they're looking at prenatal health, getting baby, women and children and whatnot, helping them out. And that's what they say they're doing. I guarantee you. And then I look at the damn tax receipts because they're a legitimate NGO. I mean, they're hot by Charity Navigator. They're highly ranked, right? I look at their tax. The CEO of that damn American outfit working out of Connecticut's getting paid $500,000 a year for a 35-hour work week, according to her own tax statements. There's 160 people in Connecticut making over 6 digits. I mean, well over 6 digits because they had to report this stuff. We're talking 250, 300K, right? What the hell is that? And they say that they're in saving children in Nangarhar province, Afghanistan. I'll guarantee you, I'll tell you what I think they're doing, which is why I didn't ever hear of them, because they've got no expats. I think what they're doing is they're going into the women's ministry and injecting money in there, because those women ministry, they'll pay teachers and stuff like that for girls' schools and what have you. Or maybe they're working with the educational ministry. They would have to actually work with both because they kind of dovetail into each other. There's all kinds of overlapping and competing agendas going on there. I think that's what they're doing, right? Which means that they don't know where their donor dollars are going. They don't know that they've ever saved a damn child. Now, let me ask you a question. How much do you care about the poor? How much do how much do you care about the poor? How much do you care about starving children? And let's be honest. You know what? Because you don't care. I don't care. I don't care. If I care less about poverty, the further it moves away from my family. And I say that as a guy who's taken considerable risks to get kids with cleft palates out of Taliban-infested areas to Kabul where they could be operated, again by guys who have come there, like my buddy Keith, on his own dime. This Dr. Keith Rose, on his own dime, right, to teach the Afghan surgeons how to fix cleft palates, because that kind of malformity is very common in Afghanistan due to a little bit of incestuous breeding habits with the rural folks, marrying first cousins and stuff like that. You're going to have this kind of stuff, right? Here's a picture of one of them. Here you go. But in order to get them into Kabul, some of these people come from families that aren't exactly known by the government to be friendly to them, and they got to get somebody that can get them through the checkpoints. I can get anybody through a checkpoint in Afghanistan. I can't get booze through an NDS checkpoint. I got my body armor ripped off at an NDS checkpoint. NDS checkpoints are a little bit tougher. I could get through them with my weapons. But I wrote a blog post about getting ripped off and ended up on the cover of Soldier of Fortune magazine. Yeah, man, a guy called me. Guy sends me an email. You want to be famous? Guess what? I'm not famous. But I was on the cover of Soldier of Fortune. Here it is, right? I wrote an article about this stuff. But anyway, I would get these kids up to the hospital and back. That was risky, right? That entailed significant risks, as did all these volunteers coming on their own dime and living at the Taj in Afghanistan. All these people were undertaking significant risks to try to help out people who had gotten a bad rap. But the truth is that I don't really care. You don't really care. If you cared, you'd be donating money to one of these outfits that you could check up on that feed a child in Africa. Not that I believe that they actually feed a child in Africa. Don't give a damn dime to save the children. Shit. And that's not even counting, by the way, the overhead for Save the Children in places like UK. Let me tell you a story about a Save the Children wench from the UK that went into the volunteer sea lifeboat rescue community, which are all volunteers, by the way, and then starts firing them because they got naked women on their coffee mugs. These guys are volunteers. They've been doing this for 35 years. Like I said, the Brits, this is why they're annoying. You can't go someplace like the goddamn Jam Minaret where you're told you're the first Westerner to see it when hadn't been a damn Brit been through with a dog and a walking stick making you look like a pussy. Oh, you can't say that. A sissy. That's what I meant to say. Jesus, heaven forbid. And so you can't, I mean, you could talk about the Coast Guard going out and doing all these high-speed rescues and stuff. Now look at these pictures of these Brits and these big-ass boats, and they're doing it for nothing. But then you get a Save the Children executive to come over and take over the Volunteer Association because they're not buying these big-ass boats. The British people are proud of these guys. They donate money to these guys. The guys manning the boats don't get paid. But there's an overhead to buy the boats, to do the administration, to certify the training and whatnot. This woman takes over and entire crews are quitting. They're just quitting. They're like, no, we're not going to put up with this PC nonsense. The hell is wrong with you? We're the rescue guys. So I get all irritated because Dr. Dave and Baba Ken and a few others, and here's the last crew that was in right here. Here's Rachel and Jen, the last crew in the attached article that talks about them. Here they are with an Indian movie star. That's a great picture. That's because Rachel's husband took the picture. His Juan, I think it was Martinez. Gosh, I forget Juan's last name. What a good dude out of Colombia. Fucking great guy, right? But Rachel and Jen, I remember getting a panic call from them. They're in a rut, and I'm like, girls, come back. Me and JD will sort you out. We'll get you in Kabul. We'll get you out of here. I think it was 2012, it might have been 2011, 2012. And because things had deteriorated to that point. And so there was a time when we were injecting money. All kinds of positive things were happening. DVD shops, barber shops, all kinds of little corner stores. They're opening everywhere, right? They're opening everywhere. And then comes the surge. And with the surge comes the due date that we're pulling out. And that's when Jalalabad starts turning to shit. Not that it hadn't had problems before, but they've been very low and infrequent. Now you see on this picture here, DVD shops getting blown up at night. Night litters, like this night litter, being left everywhere. Notice this night litter is unsigned by anybody, which is kind of telling, right? Barbershops blown up because they're next to DVD stores. The Army, American Army, attacked on Jalalabad Bridge in broad daylight. Look at this. Believe it or not, look at that MRAP. Nobody was hurt in that incident. Praise be to God. But now things are going to hell in a handbasket. And the question is why? And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. The government's function should be to guarantee the rights of its citizens, the rights to their own property, right? All the Afghans ever asked their government is, let me have my property. Let me have clear title to my land and property, right? And, we'll give children to the Standing Army. Just the Standing Army's got to keep all the infidels the hell out of the country and they don't bother us. Well, it didn't work out too well for them, as you can see. Not that we were what the hell they were talking about. But this is a picture of the land deeds office in Jalalabad. Look at this. Those documents go back hundreds of years. Look at how they're stored, okay? Because the problem was, not only was the Afghan government corrupt, not only was it incompetent, and let's go back to the SIGAR's report, and let's talk about what kind of incompetence I'm talking about, because this is the most frustrating things. All right. So GDP in Afghanistan starts to rise due to us, a five-fold increase. The GDP for your Afghans in 2001 was $117 per family. By 2012, right at the time that I'm winding down and Synergy Strike Force and is whatnot is winding down, it's 669, five-fold increase. By 2016, it's back down to 562. It's taking a nosedive. Now, there's an outfit called the Doing Business Reports, right? And it goes on 190 countries on basically the ease, the cost, and other issues in operating businesses in these countries. Now, overall, Afghanistan is right at the bottom at 183rd, okay? It stands in the middle of the pack for starting a business at 107th, but when enforcing contracts, 181st. Construction permits, 185th. Protecting minority investors, 189th. They're the worst in the country. Now, if you're going to start up a business in Pakistan, Or India. In Pakistan, it's basically 55 hours of work and your business is up. In India, it's 38 hours of work. In Afghanistan, it became 228 hours of work. But as time wore on, as you see the state, that you've got all these land deeds, right? Now the Taliban, when they owned the damn country, they were placing all their supporters, all their different tribes, they're putting them on land. Then the Taliban leaves, but there's people on that land who've been on that land for a good long time. How are you going to rectify the two? And the government, when it steps in, there's two ways of adjudicating a land dispute. One is through the government courts, and the other one's through the Taliban shadow courts. By 2011, the Taliban shadow courts are the preferred method for adjudicating land disputes, even with Kabul government officials. Because what happens when the Kabul government, and bear in mind, we're spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars importing lawyers and judges and prison correctional facility officers and cops to try to teach Afghan cops the fine art of forensics. They're not even literate. They can't even run a computer to this day to keep track of blood types. But we're spending all this money like drunken sailors, right? And not one of those bastards has gone down to this repository and looked at these land deeds and said, holy shit, look at this. Let me put up another picture. Look at that. How are you going to diffuse that? And so when there's an argument that the government courts are going to decide, who do you think is going to win the argument? The guy with the connections to the government who's paid to win the argument. And the people are not amused. They're not amused. And what does it look like when the government decides they're going to enforce one of these decisions? Here you go right here. Here's a picture of one. Now, these people are being ejected off of what the government claimed to be government land that they've been on for 20 years. This land was worthless except for the Nangarhar ink plan that some army guy dreamed up, decided that this is going to be the land where they're going to put in cold storage for vegetables to export to Pakistan. Right? Like that's ever going to happen. So here they are burning people out. And here's the government officials down at this gas station, another one that's opened up after our cash for work influx of money, right? Here they are down there arguing with the folks, and here they are leaving as the folks start shooting at them. And here's me and Amy's son leaving because they're starting to shoot at us. And I'm not talking a snap of rounds going over our head. We're getting the bee buzz. I mean, those guys are zeroed in on us. I'm like, God, and Amy had no clue. So I'm like, get in front of her, and I walk in the car. I'm like, hey, we gotta go. What's going on? What are those bees? Get out of here, So it was a stupid thing to do to be taking pictures and stuff. But look, it's a cool picture, right? So this is where the dissatisfaction starts. And we did that. We did that by jacking in more money than they ever could have absorbed, by jacking in government structures, which the Afghans looked and saw, how can I best benefit myself? How can I best abuse this system? Look, USAID and aid has never worked anywhere. It doesn't work. It's a long, drawn-out history of abject failure. And there's books written about this stuff. The most recent one that I just stumbled across the other day was entitled "Don't Get Upset." It was entitled the white man's burden. And I got a paragraph I want to read out of you from that. Problems are compounded because donors' cash is administered by, quote, the planners, aid bureaucrats, who are largely unaccountable for results. Top-down goal setting and planning and mentally effectively shut out information about what is really needed on the ground. And any useful feedback about why projects fail or in rare circumstances succeed, compounding these inherent weaknesses of rich largesse for the rest. Most of the poor countries have bad governments wherein aid money is siphoned off to Swiss bank accounts, and corrupt officials sabotage the workings of rudimentary markets, increasing the cost of doing business by discouraging private investment. The Mayor Jalalabad just did just that. He started getting chain gangs going around, removing rupees from local vendors, saying you're not supposed to be using rupees. But then, of course, he'd end up with the rupees. And I told him, I said, Mayor, this is a bad idea. But it didn't matter what I thought, right? I mean, at that point, we were winding down, and I was getting ready to move down to Helmand, try to support my two best friends, who were the regimental combat team leaders down there. And so, because of this, because of the largeness, and we go back to, the Save the Children thing. What irritates me about them is the amount of money they got. as you read this article about Dr. Dave and the Synergy Strike Force, they lost their internet fat pipe because that wasn't going to be an indefinite thing. They basically wound down because they invested every penny they could lay their hand on to try to keep operating. Baba Ken supplies the Jalalabad Jeek Squad. He's to this day, any little thing he can scrape together, he sends out to him. The guys that went there and went on the ground and took the risk to put their ass in the game are destitute. You know, they're not making any money. I don't make any money. I'm unemployed myself, as a matter of fact. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm okay. I'm handling it pretty well. But these people at the Save the Children kinds, the USAID bureaucrats, all these folks from the gigantic USAID recipient, like the DAIs and the Commonics, all those people are doing great. They're doing fine. They'll never not fly first class. They'll never not stay in a 5-star hotel. They'll never have to worry about what will happen when they don't have any money coming in and the government is looking to them for back taxes or weird crap like that. That's a whole nother story. It's not like I didn't pay my taxes. It's a whole different thing here. So that's what irritates me, because when the Fab Lab was up and running, when Dr. Dave and Baba Ken, all those guys, they all said, you've got to sustain yourself. Imagine had they got enough money to help the Afghans sustain themselves, because they wanted money to start planting this other places like Herat, like Mazar Sharif, like Kabul, right? Imagine if they had been able to do that, to keep on planting these things, and the Afghans had been sustained enough to be in self-sufficiency. When you start talking about the aid racket, the most famous example of one that works is Malawi, where they were distributing insect-impregnated mosquito nets for people to use. Now, what this NGO did, this I believe was a French NGO, what they would do is they would charge the poor people 50 cents for that net, and they would the nurses that they were going out and selling it, they'd get a cut. They'd get 7 cents out of every net they sold. So they're incentivized. They had volunteers, nursing volunteers, who they had a reason to be selling these nets, right? And the usage rate of the nets was at 98% versus like less than 20% when you just give it to them. Because when you give somebody something, it's of no value to them. They just got given this thing. Now they would sell nets to the rich Malawians for $5 a copy, and this was a self-sustaining thing, right? So the French NGO's there. They've got a bunch of women who are going around selling these nets. 50 cents is not exactly an unsurmountable amount of money for anybody to come up with. But because the women are paying for these nets, they're using the damn things. This is how it works when it works. Giving people shit, you end up with this in the MOI headquarters. 17 years we've been doing this, and we still get this kind of performance. But imagine if we had been able to sustain ourselves, because this is where I get pissed. Bill and Melinda Gates said they weren't interested in helping out anybody other than their rich and connected friends that Save the Children. These are $500,000 a year women. These are not, they're part of the system. They are the 1%. And they're selling dispensation to the rest of the 1%. Oh yeah, you've made up $1 billion, and here, to feel better, give to us. We'll save children. Save children my ass. What you end up doing is running out decent lifeguards, ballsy Brit dudes working for free, driving these boats in the middle of the Northern Sea, and you drive them away because they got coffee mugs with naked women on them. Are you shitting me? That's why I get pissed. So here's Afghanistan. It's not going to work. We keep on dumping in more and more and more money. We could have had a reasonable, if there was a reasonable NGO circuit, if somehow we could have reached the people that give the big bucks to donors, and we could have planted Fab Labs across that country, right? It may not have worked. It may not have been any better, but you would have had a cadre of kids who knew how to use a goddamn internet and a computer. Because there's a bunch of them down in Jalalabad today, thanks to some wacko, crazy, ballsy kids from MIT coming out to do that. And as like I said, it's infuriating. But they did it for free. Here they are spreading the internet across Jalalabad. Here's my son hauling one of these damn things up the water tower. God bless him. So I guess I've rambled on enough. I'm going to be doing more of these podcasts. I'm going to take you back to the beginning, show you all of Afghanistan as I know Afghanistan. And we'll continue to check in with with the progress of what's going on the ground, but we're not going to get any good news because there's not going to be any good news to be had. I don't care what you hear from DC. This is Bob and Tim out.